My dad was called out to a street corner in Evanston on Central Street by the doctor in the evening, and he was told that Pat was hopelessly retarded, and the doctor said to put her in an institution and that he never wanted to see her again.
She said Asperger's.
And I ended up taking her to a residence in Ohio. That was devastating for me.
There was so little out there. There was very little help for persons with the disabilities, the type that my daughter has.
My dad went home and talked to my mom, and she decided that she had to do something about it. She had to find a place that Pat would fit in. You know when you're a child and you say starlight, starbright? Every time I did that, I would say, please make Pat normal.
I remember, and this is when I was about 5 or 6, I remember people looking at my sister. They just started calling her names, and people didn't even know what kind of person this was.
Pat was a very, very special part of my life. She loved music.
And my sister had this radio in the dining room.
Oh, it was Ron Riley on WLS. That was her heartthrob.
And she would rock back and forth and listen to him.
That was her passion, and counting pennies.
He collected pennies, and we still have a 5-gallon jar of pennies at home.
Betsy very much loved having her sisters around, and she was really very responsive to love and affection.
There was a lot of parents that had an initial dream that their son or daughter should be involved in the community, and that's how SURE began.
Tom and Lois Lloyd had the drive and the compassion to say, we can create a better life, not only for our own child, but for others.
This woman, she had an incredible soul.
She set her mind to things, and no one and nothing was going to stand in her way.
My dad encouraged her to, live that dream, to make that school become a reality. And he made it fiscally possible for her to do that.
Our basement was what would today be classified as a cellar. And he put in tables and chairs, and it became her little classroom. And they would do arts and crafts, and in the backyard we had a jungle gym and swings for the kids and a sandbox. And so they would have regular classroom like you would with a preschool.
Bill has a very interesting history of being one of the first children served by Lois Lloyd in her home, and he has grown up with the organization, and he's still with us today as a senior.
I love SURE School. Happy there.
There was a lot of really funny, happy moments. There was one child who had a very deep voice, very deep. And when she would get upset, she would look at them and say, bullshit. Well, my mother would say, we don't say that. These were the things that made the school. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. And they also then later on started a summer camp for these kids at Leahy Park in Evanston. And that was a lot of fun. I worked there a couple of summers.
And it didn't take long for other families in the area to learn of this innovative idea.
So they moved to the basement of Covenant Methodist Church down the street from their home.
It went from church to church to church. She reached out to everyone she could think of that had a special needs child and brought them into this organization, which at that time was called North Shore Association for Retarded.
My mom and some others were involved in trying to get the state to underwrite public school programs for the mentally retarded back in the mid-50s. And it happened.
And a school began that is still here today called Park School in Evanston. But the problem was that her daughter was still too low functioning. So they built their own school.
There were some that said, well, why do we need a building? And Lois said, well, there's others out there too that need our help. that need our assistance. And so they found a land and they built a building.
And she had the help of so many wonderful parents.
What we did to raise money back when it was first founded was we had a Christmas tree sale. And that's one of probably my earliest memories, is that I would help people pick out trees.
And I'm sure my brother was this way too. You hold them up and the kids go, oh, I don't like that one. And it might take a half hour before you find the perfect tree. That's really kind of cool.
And help load it on their car, and every once in a while someone would give me a dollar or two, and it was like a big deal.
And then there was a trailer, and we got to go in and have a little hot chocolate, and some of the parents of the clients would be there. And
This was a group of people who just had a goal in life, and they succeeded.
And that's when it started to bloom, and it became something real. I mean, when you have your own building, it's real. And they built a 3-classroom school and hired a full-time principal of the school.
From there, we saw individuals growing into adulthood. We started a work program where we contracted work from industry and taught people how to become adult workers.
And then finally being able to see them get a job in the community.
And my daughter graduated from high school, and she went from one job to another, but really didn't have anything. And then she got into Shore Training Center. She seemed to be making progress, and then they started to get her jobs.
It's been a great learning experience for her, how to work in a retail store, help to organize and straighten things.
Nancy was feeling very good about herself, and we knew this was all made possible by what Shore had done and how Shore had become involved in her life.
There are just so many stories.
You like work center, packing my box, like it.
Dara has now got a bank account.
Those are big accomplishments.
They care about me and they love me so much, and they want me to do well, and mostly I do a good job. And I did receive an award for being the best worker in the workshop. I just feel proud of myself that I did those things.
From there, we found that there was a need for a diagnostic nursery for the early evaluation of children.
We were one of the first agencies in the state of Illinois in 1969 to do diagnostic testing of children between birth and 3 with developmental delays.
The parents that come into that program are very scared.
David was about 3 or 4. We were taught as a father and mother how to handle this situation, which we wouldn't have had if they hadn't intervened.
This is a program that is so vital because the earlier you can start intervening with a child with a developmental delay, the greater the growth of that child will be.
Shore gave us hope. They were the guiding light.
Now, a lot of families have grown with Shore, went into the school program, and then after they graduated, went into our vocational programs. And the emphasis became on community life, so Shore started group homes.
Today we have a full array of housing from individuals that can live fairly independently in their own apartment, all the way to folks who need 24-hour continuous supervision.
The longer I work with these individuals, the people we serve, the more I come to realize we are so much alike, so much more than we are different. These people moved out of their parents' homes and were very proud and excited. Like their siblings, they were moving out. They had their own bedroom. They had a very busy life. They were very excited. They become so much a part of you. You're in every aspect of their lives.
Shore actually came into my life when I was 9 years old. I had an older brother, and he was diagnosed with some developmental disability. He eventually went into the residential program, and it was a perfect fit because Eric was proud and he was bound and determined, he wanted to be like everybody else.
In 1994, we opened our first CILA, Community Integrated Living Arrangement. And it was opened primarily because Mrs. Ganser was a very strong advocate.
I was pretty desperate about Betsy when she went to Ohio. I wanted my baby within my own reach.
Mrs. Ganser's daughter, Betsy, was one of the first people we had in the CILA.
And I could feel the warmth and the interest in Betsy and being taught in a way that I would not have thought possible some years ago.
We were growing, we were expanding, we were helping another segment of our population.
Creating a program for individuals with severe disabilities that need a continuing community day education.
It is something that we have chosen to do, to be able to open our doors to more individuals with greater needs.
My son is Jason Gardenhire. We've been involved with Shore 7 or 8 years, actually. I think the staff is just incredible. It's more than I could ever expect. Trusting someone to care for your child for 8 hours a day is a big decision.
Our teachers are amazing.
Every single person just glows with compassion.
They put everything into what they do.
Shore's home for the individuals that we serve and our staff.
Shore is a family.
In the past 60 years, the growth of the agency has been remarkable.
Something that we could be proud of.
From starting with 6 children in Lois's home, we now serve over 500 individuals between children and adults.
My mother was so proud of Shore. It was a dream that had come true. I know inside she thought, wow, this is wonderful.
And if she's looking down on us, which I'm sure she is, she's just thrilled to pieces for what Shore has become.
You can do anything with your strength, with your heart and soul.
I sat in my chair at the graduation, a moment that we were told was impossible. I kept thinking, if those people only knew. We were told by several doctors that David should be institutionalized. I mean, it was a feeling unbelievable. I thought David wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Shore.
It has gone beyond my dreams for Betsy.
I know in my heart that I can do all these things on my own because we deserve to have the freedom that everybody would love to have.
It's a wonderful feeling to see a child who just blossoms, who feels wonderment in being able to push a broom across a floor, in being able to put a letter in an envelope. And the people around who've worked forever to get this individual to tie his shoes. When it happens, it's absolutely magical. And all you can say is, wow, we did it. We did it.
I can't help but think that the real spirit behind Shore, the real motivating force, was my sister. I can't forget my sister.
Patty, Eric, all of the people that have been through Shore, they're still with us. They're still pushing us to continue on that legacy.
I can't forget my mom and all the early parents. They had a spirit. They had a spirit, they had a goal, they had a mission. I'd love to see that mission reignited that started in 1949.
Dream big and reach out into the future.
We can't forget them.